Okay, alright, so for the first 2 minutes, we need to describe the student work, and review the standard. So let's talk about number 2. And the standard was that they had to make an inference using a quote, from the text. Okay? So this one's, the question was, make an inference about Jack's action on this field trip and use details from the text to support your answer. Do you want to do the good one first or the bad example first?
We can do the good one.
Good one. Okay. This is my good one. She says, first of all, he took the little egg because in the text it says, and this is in quotes, and in the hubbub and confusion, nobody noticed what Jack was doing or heard him zip his backpack shut. So that quote can tell you that he had stolen the egg. I think he acted that way because he didn't want the egg to get eaten by the snake or get taken to the other zoo.
It's good.
Well, I like how she mentioned the text first,
Yeah.
and then she explained it after that.
Right.
And then she had her deeper thinking of why she thought he actually took
Yeah, and that was her.
the egg. And that was good.
My best was, for this standard, was that Jack stole the egg. My details from the text are that nobody noticed what Jack was doing or heard him zip his backpack shut. Also that the ranger left with a wheelbarrow with only 8 eggs. When he brought it out, it had 9 eggs.
Yeah.
So he not only said from the text, but he made sure that he even listed 2 things. That
Well, and then he was reading carefully because he noticed that it said that the ranger left with 8 eggs and that he started with 9, so they had to really be paying attention to it.
And he was backing his answer up by giving details.
And and they quoted from the text and made a good inference. Okay.
And then mine was Jack took an ostrich egg and put it in his backpack. And then when the field trip was over, there were only 8 eggs left. So pretty straightforward. And not necessarily putting it in quotes, but they are quoting,
They refer
to the text. So.
Well, and it's good, and as teachers, we have to make sure that they don't have to put a lot of fluff. They get right to the answer.
Right. Yeah. That's how, for 3, they had to refer to the text and make an inference that made sense. And a lot of mine made good inferences, but they didn't refer back to the text, so I couldn't give them a 3 for that because they didn't do the whole standard.
I probably only had maybe 6 that referred to the text.
Right. Yeah, this one was hard for them.
And we've practiced that several times. I mean, we're just going to have to keep hammering that with the book.
Because the inferencing was, they could do that, but they just couldn't refer back. But we'll talk about that in a minute when we talk about our strategies. Okay, then this is my worst example for the same question. Her answer was, I think he is bad. No, I'm sorry. I think he is bored, but I think he thought it was going to be fun. So, and again, the same question, make an inference about Jack's actions on this field trip. Maybe she's thinking about his feelings, but she totally missed the part where, about him stealing the egg, and they're supposed to infer about why he did that, or what he did. So, to me, it was just totally off.
Yep. Mine's real similar to that. He liked his field trip because he got to see ostrich eggs.
Yeah.
And just...
And that's
may
their
be
feelings.
right, which may be
yeah.
true, but it has really nothing to do with his major action and what he did.
And mine's similar also. Sad because everyone else got an egg, but Jack didn't.
Which
But they didn't get eggs. Maybe they're referring to holding an egg,
Yes,
and
'cause
he
he had
thought
an egg.
maybe the kids thought that he didn't get to hold an egg. But if they would have looked further into it, he actually took the egg and put it in his backpack, which means they're not making the correct inference to begin with.
Well, and that's that mode where it's that literal questions where they go back in and it's not stated there.
Right.
They might not know.
Okay, now we need to spend 2 to 4 minutes each describing our instructional strategies that we use, but we're not going to discuss what did or didn't work, or what didn't work. We're just discussing what we did for this, to work on this standard. We really focused a lot on quoting, and especially in the first unit, and just knowing what that was. And then we have done inferences in 4th grade, so they already had some background knowledge on that. But again, we just the first thing I did was give them explicit paragraphs and chose the quote for them, and they had to make an inference based on that at first, and then they started doing it on their own.
we stopped after every page. And I made the kids think of what was the action that character made, and I made them make an inference on that. And they had to pick a part of the book where they
Prove it.
that he did that. So it's just constantly
Right.
prove, not
Right.
just answer it, prove it.
Prove it.
And
And I told my kids that's the difference in 4th and 5th grade. Last year we just had to make an inference.
Right.
This year they have to prove it
Mhm.
from the
And
text.
that's still.
Justifying your
60
answer.
Yes, isn't that the difference?
But that is the
Yeah.
difference, that we have
Justifying your
to, with a
answer,
quote
yeah.
from the text.
Now, I had an anchor chart that I made that said the text says, and then there's a blank. And then my schema tells me, and then where they use their background knowledge. And from this, my inference is, and then to prove it, then they have to also, or justify. I've been
Right.
using justify and prove
Yeah.
side by side.
Yeah.
And I always keep it in their eyesight. And they've started now, when they do, little assessments like this, they will write it out. And so that they can fill in the blanks and they start thinking about that. And they do it a lot in their reading journals. They've written it and
Right.
copied it into the reading journals. So it's interchangeable. So.
Okay. All right, now we need to talk about what worked and what didn't work, as far as teaching this standard. Does anybody have anything for what worked?
That-
For, I think we all,
Yeah.
There's the strategy and just
Right.
anchor charts.
and I'll probably do that next time, because that's, that way they can always refer back to it.
That'll be one
That
to
was probably
save.
what didn't work for me, is that I didn't have any kind of anchor chart or anything for them to keep referring back to. So maybe we'll do that next
Mhm.
time. Anything that didn't work that you tried?
Well, it's just if I didn't pick the right book,
Mm-hmm.
where it was the same thing throughout the whole book, there wasn't any changes in the characters' actions.
Right.
They would have the same inferences, and then they would just start regurgitating what it was
Right.
in the first couple pages
Yeah.
to the end of the book. So
Right.
you really have to pick a book that has those different mood changes in the character change.
And I think from looking at the assessments and the stories that they're given, the reading passages that they're given, we need to make it more of a reading in between the lines,
Yeah.
where they have to find,
Where it's
really
not very obvious, because this was definitely the story.
not
was-
obvious at all.
Right.
Mine was, we did a graphic organizer where we would actually quote from the text and write it in quotations, and then they would have to write kind of what their inference of what's going to happen. That was a little more vague, and it worked, but it wasn't as visual, and I think that a lot of the kids are visual learners, and they need that piece, and it's just writing it down.
Right.
They could make the inference, but are they going into deeper levels of thinking? I don't think so.
Quoting, right.
In quoting.
Yeah.